everyone, welcome to In Her Words. Before I introduce our special guest today, please we would like you to subscribe and turn on your notifications so that you know that we have an amazing episode for you. In this modern world today, more and more women have climbed the corporate ladder, and in doing so, it's not uncommon for most women to find themselves alone in these rooms. Because we are alone in these rooms, a lot of women have seen that abandoning their femininity is a way to become a great leader. Well, our special guest today disagrees with this concept. I would like to welcome to you today, Annie. Hi, Annie. How are you? Welcome.
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm glad. So, Annie, could you please tell us why you disagree about letting go or sacrificing our femininity as women during being in the working environment?
Yeah, I think that it isn't something that we should be giving up or changing about ourselves. It's something that we should really highlight and, put on a pedestal as to who we are as people and really embrace that level of femininity and what it can offer to an organization and a team environment that you're in.
What made you so passionate about this topic? Could you please tell us a bit more about that?
Sure. I think that over the years, just working in different types of organizations, specifically in the tech space, you didn't see a lot of women in higher leadership roles as frequently. And learn, based on that too, you started to adopt like certain traits and different characteristics. And I think that, it's common that women tend to put who they are down and try to embrace things that are just maybe not as feminine, or maybe that it's something that's more kind of male dominated in those types of areas. So you're trying to fit in. But I think over the years, what I've come to realize is that by standing out in who you are and being that individual, you can offer a different angle, different viewpoints of things. And so, really kind of embracing that and, honing in on those factors has been really important. I feel like it's not only kind of instilled confidence in myself, but it really kind of shows in just the type of leadership that I apply to the teams that I work with.
You also speak about embracing empathy while being a leader. Could you tell us more about that and going in depth about it?
Sure. There's always levels of anxiety and pressure that comes with any job, especially being in, a management and all that comes with that. But I think at the end of the day, what we have to do is take a step back and remember that we're talking to another person and their world is so much bigger than that moment. And so if we can really kind of help coach them through a situation, we are then better understanding who they are, the way that they learn, the way that they think, and seeing them as an individual. And I think that, that level of empathy can really elevate their confidence and how they perform as well. So it's really understanding a person's strengths and weaknesses by taking the time to do so.
What are some of the things that when you've worked with other women who are leaders and trying to embrace their femininity, what is the one common thing that you have noticed that women tend to do when they are abandoning their femininity?
From what I've seen in the past, it's kind of clamming up, so to speak, like, not really opening up. And sometimes you can sense that they want to say something, but it's for fear that they don't, because maybe it's against the grain. Maybe it's something that is a completely different viewpoint from what everybody else in the room is saying. And so I think that does a disservice because it may be, for good reason. We just don't really know that that's something that somebody's thinking. And until we hear it, we can't really see it as an opportunity. So I feel like not speaking up is one of the biggest issues that I've seen. And also trying to, embrace this kind of very masculine kind of very slightly aggressive behavior sometimes to kind of show that, you're just as powerful. And really, that it's not a right way to approach anything. You have to be who you are as an individual and go with that. And people respect that. And if you're working with the right team, they'll recognize that there's different viewpoints to everything. And hearing that is important.
So what do you do when I now am a leader or a person in corporate who wants to embrace my femininity and is struggling a bit? What would I expect from working with you?
Opening up about vulnerabilities, about things that you may be afraid to share, things that you feel like are areas of weakness that, people are worried about. If I open that up, that's all people will see. And I don't want people to do that. I'd rather people be very open with me and, express themselves and say, hey, this is where I'm really struggling, or this is really something I want to improve about myself in this workplace. And by hearing that allows me to then kind of, again, have that vulnerability there to then say, okay, let's have a person-to-person conversation here. Let's talk about how we can make you feel better and empower you. So I always encourage that open, door policy, but in return to what they can expect is that it's not going to be judgment. It's not going to be used against them. It's really my responsibility then to say, okay, that's how you're feeling vulnerable. What can I do to help elevate that, to kind of help, eliminate those insecurities?
A lot of people, and women in particular, feel that being vulnerable at work puts you at a disadvantage. So how do you balance being your vulnerability and not giving away too much where it puts you at a disadvantage?
Vulnerability is one of those words that sometimes makes people cringe, and they, see it as being very soft and I love talking about emotional intelligence and soft skills. And I think that they're a vital part of any individual in any company. People can always apply hard skills, but having the soft skills allows them to work better with people, to understand individuals better, to make better connections. So for me, having that level of vulnerability elevates what you may be already doing well at as far as your hard skills. People remember how people made them feel. And when you've had a good experience with somebody, they will remember that. They will carry that on. And if your paths should meet in the future, that's something that they recognize, whether it be a client or colleague, mentor, whatever it may be. So those vulnerabilities, those kind of skill sets, those are something that we should really hone into and not be afraid to show. Now, on the flip side too, there is, it is a workplace. So we want to make sure that there's a professional way of going about that. And I think there always is. There's, always that line. We have to approach those vulnerabilities in a professional environment where it's looking at opportunities to improve too. So that's how I would say it would be applied there.
You spoke about that you've noticed that a lot of women are afraid to speak up, and a lot of women do feel unheard in the workplace. So how do you now teach someone who has never felt heard or had to do 10 times more to be heard or seen to speak up in their own way? Because that's what you also speak about.
Yeah, it's difficult, especially if you've endured years and years of it. You're kind of built in this way to just be who you are based on those experiences. So it is something that is, taking that plunge and that confidence. A lot of times I see it when people are a little bit older. They've been in the, work environment for some years. Where I see people being super afraid of doing it is those that are really young in their career that are, afraid to speak up, and that can carry with them in the future and put them at a disservice. So, one of the things that I always try to talk to people about too is that by asking questions, your voice is heard. So it doesn't mean you have to make this groundbreaking statement. It means that you're interested, you're showing up, you're caring, and you want to learn more. And that should be embraced in any environment. It shouldn't be condoned that you're asking, or it shouldn't be really kind of put down that you're asking questions. That's the only way that we really truly grow. And that instills confidence, would then kind of get you to speak up more. And it really leans into those areas of soft skills too, and that communication factor that's so important.
What is a bit about your work history that you got to this point where you saw this gap that, hang on, women aren't doing well in this one area, and now we have these autocratic women leaders that have completely gone a bit haywire. How did you go from your work history to now in this role?
Yeah, I think it took steps. It took steps of really kind of understanding who I am and, what I can offer. And then even, being okay with, I'm not going to be perfect. I'm going to have a lot of questions. And, sometimes I'm just not going to get it right. And that's okay. But it's what I can do with that. And by having good mentors, good leadership, good managers over the years that have done a great job of coaching in that way and, sharing, here's ways that we can kind of get you to feel better. I think that that's where that shift happened, where you start to sense who good managers are, who bad ones are, who are the coaches and who aren't. And by understanding that, it was, I was able to kind of really pick up on who do I want to be as a leader one day, and who, what do I want to convey? Because I remember how it felt to be on that other side. And so, I think through that time, it does switch over where it's now I have the opportunity to talk to people that are maybe young in their career or things like that, that I wish somebody had told me. Yeah.
Why do you find mentorship as an important role in developing one's career?
It's always important to feel like you have somebody in your corner, and, having a professional person in your corner, no matter what level or stage in your career path that you're in, is super important. People really get nervous about asking for help, and they don't know where to start with mentorship, when really it's just having a conversation. And as that conversation gets flowing, you start to identify, here's areas I'm really scared about. I'm really worried about my future, or things that I'm not doing so great in now. And people see it as it's very daunting because they're only looking at in this moment and any failures. And mentors can really see through the clutter and look forward for you. And so they can give guidance and things that you just can't see through the trees. So they will allow you to kind of look at down the path, and there are some things that can break through. And that really opens up that opportunity of feeling more secure with who you are.
A lot of the times when we are starting in our careers, there are people who are, or women that we look up to and we aspire to be. And those are the people we want us as our mentors. But I think we just are afraid to ask, is this woman maybe way too busy? Who would you give advice to the early career young lady who wants a mentor, but probably the big CEO or CFO is out of reach? Who would you give them advice to go into or ask for mentorship?
That's a good question. So mentorship doesn't necessarily have to be somebody that's levels higher. I feel like mentorship can be somebody that is on your level, maybe in a different organization, maybe in a completely different vertical. That allows you to have that camaraderie and understanding of what are they doing in a similar situation? How did they approach things? And so having that mentorship of colleagues or people that are, maybe in similar roles, that's equally important because we can learn from each other. And over the years, I still rely on, friends and old colleagues when I'm running into issues. And although they may not be the CEO of a company, I do know that they have come across similar situations. When I want a different angle on things and when I'm really stuck, that's what I rely on. So I still do see that as mentorship.
Well, why do you think that people don't see peer mentoring as a big of a deal than looking at someone who's way ahead of you?
Most likely it's because you're striving for that next step. You're striving to kind of move yourself forward in your career. And that makes sense. That absolutely does. And there is organizations, there are networking opportunities that are available for that. There's different types of mixers. There's, and it comes in very different verticals. If you're busy, there are different levels of networking too. It could be simple things of Zoom calls. It can be conversations via email. So they have so many different ways of doing it. And I think that it is really important to look at people of what you strive to be in and how did they get there and understanding their history. It's just kind of a different approach. It's a different form of mentorship where, to get to that next step, to really excel in where you're at now, sometimes you need that peer mentorship to help with that.
What's your favorite mentorship? I think is it peer, as you can hear.
I think that a lot of past colleagues who have since become friends over the years are really amazing mentors for me. I also teach at a local university as well. And so for me, having people that other professors at the university that have had careers and have since moved on to education, those are a different level of mentorship of how do I mentor better, from a teaching standpoint. And then from a professional standpoint too, it's really, talking to my own CEO as well, who I report to, and really getting feedback and saying, hey, there's things that, I feel like I want to work on and maybe I'm stuck. And so having that opportunity to have those honest conversations are amazing. So for me, I kind of like the mixed bag because I feel like at all points in my life, I'm needing some kind of support. And it just depends on what kind of support I'm looking for as to who I really reach out to for that.
That's so basically a community way to grow.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You spoke about lecturing. You have a job and you lecture. How is that like to balance the two?
I do see it more as a hobby. It is an opportunity for me to give back. And, I love what I do. I love the career. I've been doing it for over 15 years now. And so for me, it's talking about something that I love. And so that is just a very simple thing for me to do. What's really nice too is that I love working with students that are, really going to be graduating soon. They're super scared about their career path. They have no idea what they want to do. And knowing that, that I can be there as an opportunity to, give support and mentorship as they move on to their career. That's important. I've relied on my mentors over the years. And so to be able to give back in different, avenues is important for me.
What are some of the things that students are worried about after, you've been in university for like 4 years or 3 years, and now you have to go into the real world? That is very nerve-wracking. And what have you noticed are like the biggest concerns and how have you helped them cover those concerns?
The biggest one is how am I going to get a job? I have no experience. And I'm really terrified about entering the work world because it's this big unknown. And so, those are the things that we can lean into, with people is that, you're going to enter this a little bit blindly. Education gave you some sense of what it's going to be like, but the real world is different. And putting your best foot forward, asking questions, being open, those are things that I always try to kind of share. And I feel like that's an important factor of people that I work with that have been in the field for many, many years, and things that I'll also, ask them to do too. So knowing that if they can embrace and kind of work their hardest every day to ask questions, to learn, to absorb, to make an impact in that way as best as they can, they'll do great. And everybody starts somewhere. And we have all been there. And so this is just the beginning of really their long, exceptional journey.
That's so true. That is so true. Why femininity in the workplace? Why that? What interests you about, being feminine and embracing your femininity? Why that to you?
Working in the tech space and, out of Silicon Valley, it is a very male dominated industry. It is evolving, definitely, but being able to say, I'm a little bit different, and, being a woman in this industry and embracing, the take and the perspective that I've given over the years too, I feel like it adds really an interesting element. And so for me to embrace femininity, it means that you are embracing the fact that you have an opinion that may be different. It may be against the grain, but it's important. And every voice should be heard. And every possible angle that we can come into a situation only strengthens, the decision and the organization that we're building.
That's so true. You do work in tech, and with everything that's happening in the world of tech, with a lot of layoffs happening last year and the beginning of this year, what is it like to now try to build women up's confidence to be great leaders, and then at the same time having to experience everything that's happening within the tech world and the changes in AI? How has that been like for you as well?
Right. And technology is always evolving. So I think for that and AI and everything that's going on, it is just so much our world that once we get a grasp on something new is emerging. And so it is the ability to be agile and to change and be willing to stay on top of trends is super important, I feel like, in this industry. I think that women, in particular, it is a really trying time because, one, there is a lot happening in that space with, layoffs and cuts and things that nature that impact families, that impact their source of revenue. And so there is that added pressure and anxiety that is on top of maybe a high pressure job too. So, really organizations that are really in tune with their people are going to be super important too, because knowing that people are dealing with so much outside of their job, those insecurities. And I think, being able to be transparent with our team is also very important. They may have a lot of questions, and if we can best answer them, as clearly as possible about what's happening, what we're doing, what we're trying to do organizationally to, be secure and, during this trying time too, that makes them feel at ease as well, that we're doing the best we can, because at the end of the day, our organization is only as strong as the people that work here. And so we want to really make sure that they feel good. We're empowering them, that we're all doing great work each day too.
I'm glad that you touched on that. I think, being sensitive with everything that is happening around in the tech space and just in the world, with everything changing. And what would you say is your biggest advice that you can give women out there?
I would say don't really change who you are entirely. Be okay with having an opinion, having your specific opinion. Be able to learn from other people as well. And that's not saying that women's opinion is the only opinion. It's really being able to receive information, to convey your opinion, and have that conversation, open up and be vulnerable to your insecurities that will really allow people to see you and help you elevate yourself in, your career path as well. So I'm really a big advocate of just empowering people from a human level. And I think that, femininity is something that we should really take pride in and really lead with, and be okay that this might be different from, everything else that's happening in this world or this situation, but I have something to offer and it should be heard.
Thank you for that. what if I am one person who struggles with being assertive as a woman or as a person in the workplace? What would you tell me to try to implement assertiveness? Because I think that's the biggest struggle that a lot of women, besides not being heard, to try to implement within.
Right. Assertiveness is so interesting, especially from, a women's perspective and the way that it's perceived. I have been told early in my career, you need to be more assertive. You need to be more assertive. And so it becomes a little bit confusing too. Like, how do you want me to approach a situation? So what I've really learned over the years is that assertiveness comes with some level of directness, but also some level of coaching too. So it doesn't mean that I think assertiveness can sometimes come across as, slightly aggressive. And I think that being direct, but also being informative and coaching allows you to do it appropriately. But I also think, and the other side too, is that, women should never be judged for being assertive as well. There has been, lots of concerns over many, many years of, this woman is acting this way. She's overly assertive. And it's, it has this negative connotation associated with it, which it really shouldn't. And we should be all equal in the way that we're conveying information, as long as it's totally done professionally and appropriately too. And so I'm an advocate of assertiveness as long as it has the ability to teach.
That's true. A lot of the times, a lot of women get told that they are too assertive or aggressive, and if it was a man, it wouldn't be addressed in that light, which is unfortunate, but that's where we are. Any last words would you like to share before, and what would you like this episode to just embody, and what's your last words for our audience today?
First off, I love that this is even a conversation, that we're talking about femininity in the workplace. So continuing that conversation is so important. Being able to vocalize those type of concerns, or really embracing that and leading with that in the workplace and in our culture. My advice, or my 2 cents here would be that let's continue that. We should continue on this path, and it empowers, our future youth and those that are entering the workforce. And so I think this is all just, really giving us great momentum for what's to come.
Annie, thank you so much for your time and for sharing with us. Where can we find you on social media? Please just tell us where we can, and I'll also put it in our description box.
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn as Annie Raygoza, and then also following Clear Digital, which is the company that I work for as the Director of Client Services. We also post a lot of really interesting articles too, that also touches on femininity, workplace environment, culture, in addition to the work we do.
Thank you so much for your time, Annie.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.